Hello everyone. In today's session, we will have a hands-on demo of defining the properties in a YAML file, complex structures like list, maps, and maybe using custom objects in your application to have those properties. And mostly we will be focusing on configuration properties, annotation, how to configure it correctly. And at the end of this session, you will be able to see how autocomplete works and some tips so that you can use those tips to deprecate your properties in production ready application. You need to understand that removing a property might break it, so there will be some tips around that. Let me show you how it will look like once your application is ready. So this is how your autocomplete will looks like, right? You can select your properties, and if I minimize it to show it better, okay, right. So these are the Spring properties, and this app are the application level properties which are defined in the system. So for example, right, this way, and if I show you tenants, you can define again a nested hierarchy here. You can have an object defined. So all this we will be able to do at the end of this session. So to begin with it, we need to have a Spring project ready, and you can use the start.spring.io, the Spring initializer. We need to have DevTools. It will help things easy. Spring Web, of course, we need to have it so that we can test it and do some other stuff around it. We need to have a Spring configuration processor if we want to have autocomplete thing in place. So that's important. Validation, just that you can put some validation on your properties. Okay, so we will not focus on validation. There is a separate video on validation, a complete list. You can go through it. I will put the link in the description. So let's begin. Once you are at this stage, if you click the generate, it will give you a demo.zip. Just unzip it, and it will be, you can import it in any ID of your choice. We are using IntelliJ, so we will be focusing on autocomplete and IntelliJ. Once you import your demo application, you will be able to see a structure like this. Demo application, nothing complex, just the annotation and run method. Here you will find application.properties. You can rename it to application.yaml, or you can add application.yaml. So .properties might will not impact this thing. I just deleted that application.properties and added YAML. Now for making things easy, let's move it here so that we can see properties. So for example, I want to have properties something like this in my system: app, system, and then under system, name and version. So these properties are defined in YAML. Now I want to use them in the application. So what kind of structure I need, that we will see. So app is the base root, right? So all the properties here will be suffixed with prefix with app, right? app.system.name, app.system.version, right? So how to start? Before that, if I show you the POM file, it has the dependencies like web, DevTools I've added, configuration processor we chose when we were creating the initializer, and test is there. One important thing for you to observe is this part here. Inside this Maven compiler plugin, you can see a configuration which is telling the annotation processor path. Okay, so this is important. It is needed if you want to have autocompletion thing in place. If you don't want autocompletion, you can remove this configuration, and you can remove this Spring Boot configuration processor. Okay, so we will use it, so we are going to keep it. Now if I go back, if I open it here, we want app system. Okay, so first we need to define our root class. Let's call it app properties, you can call it anything, I'm just calling it app dot prop. I want to open it here. Inside app I want to have a system object with name and version. Okay, so first let me create a class. Before that, let's put the annotation here, configuration properties, and we want our properties to be starting from app, so let's add a prefix here, app. Okay, so this app and this app, it needs to match. If you want to use app dot, let's say app dot test, then all your properties will be like app dot test and the whole structure will be like this. Okay, but we don't want this for now, so we just want app here. Now inside this I have a system under which these are two things, name and version. You see they are in parallel, right? So what we can do, we can create a class public static. See, we are creating a static class. Focus on this part, and then we want to create a system props class. We can name this class anything, it doesn't matter much, and we need to define okay, so Code Whisperer has auto suggested, let's use it. So name is matching this and version is matching this. Okay, so we have a system properties class, getters and setters in place. What next? So now app is in, app keyword is also in place. Now this is the missing link, system properties, how to put it in place. Okay, let's define a field private system props. Okay, this is suggesting too much, we just need to have private system props here in place. And any property you add, just add getters and setters. Let's auto generate using ID, and it's done. Okay, now once these things are in place, what's next? Now we want to test it, right? So for testing, let's add a small test here, new inside here, app properties test class here, and I want to have a JUnit public test app properties, it has suggested. Okay, so we don't need app properties object, we just want to have private app properties and app properties here, we just need to auto wire it. Okay, inside this what we want to do, we want to check whether my version is correct, name is correct. Okay, so let's import assertions. Okay, and we just want to assert equals. Okay, assert equals here, let's make it a static import. Okay, assert equals what? So if you see the signature, it asks for two fields. I just want to show two things. Okay, so first you need to give the expected and then the actual value. Okay, so what do we expect here? We expect it to be 2.0.0, and how we will get it? App properties dot get system dot get version. Okay, now this is in place. We are not thinking too much, we will just give it a run. What will happen? Okay, test has failed because it has found this .app properties is null. Okay, why it is null? Of course it will be null because how my Spring Boot will load the app properties bean if we don't put this annotation. We need to put it so that it can make the beans, or not or, we just need to add it. And now let's try to run the test again and see what happens. Okay, it failed again because available expected at least one bean. Okay, so still it is not able to find it, app.properties. So this is a common mistake which we do. If you go back here, we are not able to find the bean of this. We have put the configuration properties annotation. Either we put a configuration annotation here, this one. Okay, it should work, but this is not the suggested way. We will see that once we verify our test. Okay, test is green, but now let's see the right way. Remove this, and here if you go on your demo application, here you can add enable configuration properties. Here you can tell which all classes you need to import. So we have defined app.properties here and we have imported it. Now let's try to run the test case again just to be sure that these properties are in place. My test case is green now, so these properties are loaded. Okay, so now what's next? We want to have a complex property structure in place. Let's say we want to see this structure under app, system, and in parallel to system there will be tenants. And here if you see this in YAML denotes that this is a list, name and value pair here, and inside this object, so this is one object, right? This is list, so this can be repeated. Inside this, this is one tenant, right? This is a tag where you want to define a lot of tenants like this. You can be defining them, right? So this is tenant A, you can have tenant B. So this is the kind of structure you need in place. Okay, so inside tenants, under there will be tenant, and under tenant there will be partners, and under partners again you have this structure in place. So it's a list and list of a contract, right? And inside contract you want to define some random key value pair on your choice. Let's say you don't know the name of this during your production or your different environment. You may want to have different key value pairs, right? So you may want to have a map where you can define your key whenever you want to define the property. Okay, so this is the kind of a structure you want in place. How to proceed? Okay, let's go here back to our app.properties class. So here this is the system properties. Now you want tenants in parallel, right? And you want a list of tenants, that's why you named it tenant. So now is the time to define this link, right? Private, you will define the field as list and list of tenant, and you will name it tenants, right? Okay, why tenants? Because this need to match here, right? So this is defined here. We need to define the tenant class. Okay, so where we will define this tenant class? Inside the app properties. So we defined it as a public static class here. So we will define the tenant also inside this class as a static class. Okay, why we need to define it inside this? Okay, so there is no need to define it inside for necessary. You can define these classes out of this class, but there will be something which you need to do a bit differently. Okay, we will see it later, but for now we will create a tenant class here. Let's create a public static class. Let's call it tenant. Okay, and this is done. And okay, so it has suggested some crap. Let's remove this here. Okay, and we need to import list here. Yeah, this is okay. This is I have imported the wrong list. This should be the Java util list. Okay, inside tenant we want a list of tenants. Okay, sorry, tenants in itself here is a list. Now we need to define the structure of the tenant. So inside tenant, if you see the fields, these are the fields inside it. So name, okay, this seems like a string, private string name, done. You want a partners. Okay, again see, this is a list, right? And here you can have multiple partners. This is one partner, this is second partner, and this is third partner, right? But inside partner you have your contract also, right? So you can define contract as an object or as a contract as a map. But one thing is for sure, you need a list of partners. Okay, so first let's define partners class, then we will add tenant. Public static class and partner. Here you can define, and inside partner you have private string ID, right? ID should match here, right? And inside this you have a map. Okay, so this is map. Let's define it as a private, and this is a map. This is a string and a string here, and you may want to call it contract. Name should match actually. So this is contract defined, and this can have to any key value pair defined, right? You will be get a map with key this and value this. Okay, so this partner is defined here. This partner, this partner should needs to be placed under the tenant as list, right? So here if you put private list and tenant, okay, and what I'm doing, this should be list of partners, right? We created partners. Okay, so this is done like this. Now what? We need to have the getters and setters for these. Let's try to get auto suggestions. Okay, suggest. Sometimes it's too slow. Let's generate getters and setter for these two. Done. And same way for tenant, we want to have it's not suggesting. Let's generate for these two. Okay, so now this hierarchy is made. Now I just want to see the structure, whether it is read correctly or not. One thing I will do here, I will add a test just to be sure, and test properties nesting. Let's name it something randomly. Okay, we want app.get properties. No, we don't want system now. We want properties. We are not getting tenants. Why? Okay, have we not built the project? Okay, we'll break because of it. Yeah, let's change it back. Let's build it nicely. Okay, it's built nicely. It's still giving system. Why? Let's go back here. Of course it will give because we have not added tenants. Getter setter code generate. Okay, now we'll go back here. Get tenants. Inside tenants, okay, which tenant you want? 0th. Okay, and what you want? Then get name, and that should be tenant A, right? Okay, you may want to have another assertion. We will add in the same, just to make it quick. Get 0 inside of get name. We want to get partners, and inside partners you may want to have again it's you want to get the first one, and then you want to get the contract inside it, right? And inside contract you will get the map. So any specific value you want to get the map. Okay, let's try to print the whole map and let's see what happens. Okay, and of course this will fail, so let's try to get the key. I want to get the start key here. Okay, let's put it this way, and I just want to verify whether it is matching or not. Let's put it this way, and let's try to execute this test and see what happens. Okay, so test fail. Why? Okay, actual is null and we wanted 1125. So why? Let's try to debug here and see what went wrong. Okay, let's try to evaluate step by step evaluate expressions. Okay, so I'm able to get the tenant A. Now out of tenant I just want to get the 0th out of tenant. Okay, we have got the 0th tenant. Now out of tenant I want to get the patterns. So let's see what it gives. Okay, so it is giving me 3, right? 1, 2, 3. Now inside this I want to get the 0th here. Okay, so it will give me the partner 1. Why? Because IDs are matching, so we are not okay, so it have 2, right? 0 because these keys are okay, so it have list of no, it's not that. When we are doing get 0, it is giving me this one. Okay, let's try to do the get 1. It will again give you the partner. There are no contracts inside it. If you do 0, it will show you contract field. Okay, and there are 2 fields inside here, and the key is 0.start. Oh, that's interesting. My key is 0.start. Okay, so I understand the problem now. So when we add this, it is a list, not a map, right? So what I should do, if we are trying to access it as a map, this is a mistake done here. This is a list, right? And we have defined the contract thing as a map. Okay, so let's either fix this like this here also, or change this from map to list. Okay, a list of contract object. Okay, or not a list, but it can be just a plain contract instead of map, a contract class. Okay, first let's test it again. I think it should work because now it is map. Okay, yes, it's perfectly working fine. So it is added as a map. Let's put it back. So this is key, this is value. Okay, so this part is a map, right? And this is another map, right? If I need to change something, I need to make it like list of map contract. This will break here. Let's fix it. Make return. Okay, now it is list, and here let's make it also okay. So list of map of a string, here it is defined like that, and inside if I go here, this will break, get contract, and inside get contract it will give me a map. So I should get 0th element, and inside map I should get the key. That should be like a start. Okay, it has become already too complex. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it works. Okay, so ideally it should not be defined this way, and key value pair should have been defined like this. So this was a mistake, right? And let's put it back and let's add some more complexities to it. Let's bring in, okay, so I have added few more properties, for example metadata, and we have added customer. So to keep the session short, what I have done, I have already defined, so system properties we saw just now, tenant we saw, and metadata, this is a map, y map. So problem which we saw here, it was a list of maps, it is just map key 1 value 1. And if you go inside the tenant here, there is partner, there is customer, right? We have already seen some of them. Partner we just saw, right? So you can take a reference of this class, I will put the link, and that's how you are able to do it. But now I want to focus on one important thing. So you have already seen the challenge of having such a big class. A lot of classes are there, nested classes. It's not easy to do, easy to read actually. So what we can do, and another thing, I've added few tests here so that we can verify that my properties are loaded. So one important thing, why do we need this test class? Just to be sure that properties are loaded correctly. Okay, apart from that, it has some other benefits also. For example, for imagine in production or in any environment, some properties are creating some mess and you want to test whether the structure is defined correctly. You just pick up that structure, put it in your code, and if you have units in place, you can simply run them, and of course they will give you the immediate response. Another thing is to ensure your application always have some default values. So for example, let's say you want to have this name to be test app for sure, or for example you want key 1 and value 1 to be always defined as your default properties. Okay, imagine you have a URL something like localhost 8080, right? Have you ever noticed that sometimes we end up committing instead of localhost maybe some server IP, right? And it will remain there until unless someone see that okay, we have put our test environment IP, it should not be there, right? So if you have test cases in place ensuring the default values, so you can design your test cases to validate that your default properties are always defined the way they should be. So that is another business value. It saves a lot of time and a lot of chaos. So that's why these test cases are important. This is not just to test whether Spring is working fine, right? It has some business value. That's one thing I wanted to talk about unit test. And apart from that, another important thing which we have not talked so far. So instead of defining all these classes as nested classes, what should we do? We should promote this we should promote them out as a separate class. So let's see what challenge we will face. I will use tools ID provided feature, refactor, move inner class. I will move it out as a separate class. Okay, so now system props is moved out. My tests are not sure what's happening to test. Let's try to execute the test and see if something breaks. Okay, so they are working fine. Okay, one thing have you observed? It is not a static class anymore, right? Imagine if you go here and for one of the class you removed static. Let's make it public and see what happens. Will it break? Okay, so yes, if you are putting it inside this class as nested class, then define this class as a static. This is a common mistake which a lot of people do and end up wasting a lot of time figuring out what's happening. So all the classes inside this app properties class, if you define, you put them static, and when you move them out, they need not to be static, right? It won't allow a static class like this. Okay, so even by mistake you will not do it, but inside you can have this, and it will be very tricky to find out. Okay, so now you can define your properties outside. Next part which I want to focus on is auto completion of the properties. Let's close all the tabs, go to the application.yaml. So, and here in your POM we had this annotation processor, right? So having this annotation processor in place, what it do, if you go inside your target folder, inside classes and inside meta, right, you will see Spring configuration meta.json. You will define some, you will see some groups defined, some properties defined. Okay, you will observe that the structures which are nested are necessarily not present inside this. For example, if you try to find the customers here, let's see if you find it or not. No. Okay, so but that's not the problem, right? Because metadata.json, whenever you end up a list in the hierarchy or a collection in the hierarchy, it do not add the right metadata here. You may need to add some hints here so that some tools which will do the auto completion might work correctly. But lot of IDEs are able to do it correctly by itself. And how to make the auto completion work. So if let's just comment these out here like this and see if it is doing some auto suggestions or not. Okay, no, it's not suggesting. My metadata is here. How to debug it? Okay, so if you will go over internet, a lot of people will try to say a lot of things, and few things might work for you, may not. But what I do, I will show you my configurations first. Okay, so for IntelliJ, generally a lot of people say you should do enable your annotation processor, enable annotation processing. So let's do it and see what happens, and let's build after that just to be sure. You have a problem here. Expected not null test tenant configurations. Okay, we have unit test cases in place, and we have commented out the properties. Okay, let's uncomment them for now and now run our test cases just to be sure. First I will do the even clean, and then next I will do the verify. Okay, build successful. Now if I go back here and let's try to, okay, so now it is suggesting me app. If I go at this level, okay, this level, it's just right. Let me try to remove all and app. Let's go inside tenants, inside customers. I can put ID some random ID, right? Additional fields. So it's a map. So basically it should be like this, and renewal. Okay, so this is an interesting thing. Here it is giving me some suggestions also, false and true. I can choose, right? It was not suggesting for everything, but for renewal it is suggesting false and true as an option. Why? I will show you something here. Okay, it was the renewal field. Okay, so here it is like this. So basically I've not done anything since it's a yeah, so it's a boolean and it is able to give me those auto suggestions because it's a boolean. Okay, let's define false. Okay, instead of boolean, you know, let's make it an enum as subscription. Okay, and let's define this enum here. Okay, public, sorry, enum, and this is like subscription, active and inactive. Okay, now here instead of subscription, okay, it's already subscription, you need to fix your getters and setters. I changed it back. This should be subscription. This should also be subscription. Why it is crying? Because this should be subscription. Okay, so now it is fine. Let's build the project so that new metadata is generated. Okay, some test might fail. Even clean, and then Maven verify. Why? Because when I run Maven clean and verify, sometimes I observe a strange issue. So that's why. Okay. Okay. Let's see if it has generated some metadata at this stage or not. Classes, metadata. Okay, it already generated metadata. Test has failed though. Let's go back to the application properties and see if it has started suggested something for. Okay, it is picked up, and see, it can give you the custom values, right? Whatever you want to do. So this is one thing. Another important thing, for example, another important thing for a lot of people, enabling annotation processor do not work. So for them there is a plugin which helps a lot. I'll give you the name of that plugin. Marketplace. Okay, it's here. If you go, Spring Boot Assistant, right? So if IntelliJ in itself is not working for autocompletion, put this plugin, enable it. I have already enabled it. And sometimes even this plugin is little slow. It takes few minutes to refresh its cache data. Another way is, go inside IntelliJ, if you go and if you invalidate caches, it will restart your application. A lot of times you might have a use case where you want to deprecate a property. For example, for subscription, you want to define a new property and you do not want to force your customers to immediately change it. So it might lead to either a, it might be a breaking change. To avoid it, so what you can do, let's say you define a new property just for demonstrating. I'm taking random name of the property. So let's say new subscription property, and it have some different value and you want to use it. So introduce new property, and if you go back to your app properties class, and if you go find here the subscription here, and you just mark it as deprecated and introduce new property like this, new property. Okay, you can define different values, whatever you want to do. Right, let's say you define a new, since it's an enum, you can define a new enum, new subscription, right? So this is how at code level you can mark your property as deprecated. You can add a note here. Okay, so once you add a note here, and you will use the, it will start suggesting you deprecated in favor of new property, this comment, right? So that's how these things can help you take better decisions, deprecating properties slowly, informing customers well in advance, and right. And what another thing which you can do when your application starts, at that point of time you can start logging out, that whenever someone try to get the value for subscription, right, start putting loggers that soon this property will be deprecated, start using this property. And you can start mentioning that in this version it will be completely removed. So it's like taking instead of doing a breaking change, even for properties you should deprecate them gradually. Your application should be able to handle both the properties till a certain point of time, right? So I think it has already become a lengthy session, and happy programming, have fun. For any queries, leave the comment. I will be putting the link to these tutorials in the description. All the best.